This film is for informational and educational purposes only. It does not aim to advertise, promote, or suggest any specific conduct. Case number 9. The man who bankrupted a president. Some swindlers steal from strangers. Ferdinand Ward stole from a president. In the 1880s, his name on Wall Street meant one thing: money that multiplied. They called him the Young Napoleon of Finance, a prodigy who seemed to conjure profit out of thin air. He was charming, tireless, and trusted by the most famous man in America, and almost everything he touched was a lie. He was born in 1851 in the quiet village of Geneseo, New York, the son of a Presbyterian missionary who had once preached in India. It was a strict, pious home, built on duty and self-denial. The boy who grew up in it would become the opposite of everything his father stood for, a man whose entire fortune was an illusion and whose religion was other people's trust. By his 20s, Ward had talked his way onto Wall Street and into a profitable marriage. He carried himself like a man who already knew he would be rich. He spoke the language of railroads and government bonds with breezy confidence, dropped the right names at the right dinners, and let everyone assume he had the golden touch. Reputation, he understood, was the only collateral that mattered. His genius was never investing, it was belief. Ward grasped a simple, terrible truth about money: people do not check the books of a man who seems to be making them rich. As long as the dividends kept arriving, no one asked where they came from. He didn't need to be a great financier. He only needed to look like one and to find a name so trusted that no one would dare doubt it. He found that name in 1880. Ward went into business with a young man named Ulysses S. Grant Jr., known to everyone as Buck, the son of the former President of the United States. Together, they founded a Wall Street brokerage and gave it a name that opened every door in America: Grant and Ward. Through Buck came the ultimate prize. Ulysses S. Grant, the general who had won the Civil War, the twice-elected president, perhaps the most trusted man alive, joined the firm as a partner. He put in $100,000 in securities. He had no head for business and almost no involvement in the day-to-day. What he gave Ward was worth far more than money. He gave him his name. The third partner was a banker named James D. Fish, president of the Marine National Bank. Quietly, the bank became the firm's private cash machine, lending Grant and Ward enormous sums on the strength of its securities. A brokerage, a famous family, and a bank, all bound together. To the outside world, it looked like the safest investment in New York. In truth, it was a single chain, and every link was rotten. When wealthy men asked Ward how he made such extraordinary returns, he leaned in and lowered his voice. The firm, he confided, held secret government contracts, lucrative supply deals awarded quietly in Washington, made possible by the Grant family's unrivaled connections. It was a perfect lie. It explained the impossible profits, it flattered the investor with a secret, and it leaned on the one name in America no one questioned. There were no government contracts. There were barely any investments at all. What Ward actually ran was a scheme the world would one day name after another man, a Ponzi scheme, though Ward built his a full generation before Charles Ponzi was even on the scene. The dazzling profits paid to one investor came straight out of the pocket of the next. The Grants themselves were told their money earned 2 to 3% every single month, returns no honest broker on earth could promise. Outside investors were tempted with rates even more outrageous. As long as fresh money kept pouring in faster than Ward had to pay it out, the illusion held. The whole structure was a wheel that could never stop turning without flying apart. And Ward added one more trick. He would take a single bundle of securities and pledge it as collateral for a loan, then pledge the very same securities again to a different lender and again to another. The same paper backed 3, 4, 5 different debts at once. On the books it looked like a fortune. In reality, it was one thin stack of certificates, promised away many times over. For a while it worked beyond his wildest dreams. Ward grew fabulously rich, a brownstone in the city, a great estate in the country, the toast of New York society. He was hailed as the most brilliant young financier of the age, and the more he was admired, the more money flooded in, and the faster the wheel had to spin to keep the impossible promise alive. Every Ponzi scheme dies the same way. The moment new money stops coming faster than old money must be paid. For Ward, the first crack appeared in the spring of 1884. The city of New York pulled a large block of its deposits out of the Marine National Bank, the very bank quietly keeping Grant and Ward afloat. Suddenly, the cash machine was running dry. Cornered, Ward turned to the one man whose trust he had never spent, the president himself. He told Grant the bank needed an emergency injection of cash, a temporary problem, nothing more. Grant believed him completely. He went to William H. Vanderbilt, the richest man in America, and on the strength of his own name, borrowed $150,000. He handed every dollar of it straight to Ferdinand Ward. It was already too late. The money disappeared into the same bottomless hole as everything else. On the 6th of May, 1884, Ulysses S. Grant arrived at the offices of Grant and Ward believing he was a wealthy man. Within 2 hours, the truth came down on him like a wall. The firm had failed, Ward had run, and the former president of the United States was ruined. The numbers, when they came out, were staggering. Grant and Ward owed something on the order of $16 million. Against that mountain of debt, the firm could show assets of barely $67,000. The Marine National Bank collapsed the same week. Investors who had trusted the most famous name in America got back almost nothing. The failure rippled across Wall Street and helped touch off the financial panic of 1884. For Grant, the fall was total. The general who had saved the Union, the man who had been president for 8 years, was left with about $80 in his pocket. He gave Vanderbilt his Civil War swords and medals to settle the debt he could never repay in cash. The hero of his age had been beggared by a man he had treated almost like a son. And then, as if fate had not punished him enough, the diagnosis came. That autumn, doctors told Grant he had cancer of the throat. He was broke, dying, and haunted by the thought that he would leave his wife and family with nothing. The man who had commanded armies now faced the one enemy he could not defeat, and a debt of shame left behind by Ferdinand Ward. So Grant picked up a pen and fought his last battle on paper. Racing the cancer, often in agonizing pain, he began to write his memoirs, the story of his life and his wars. His friend Mark Twain offered to publish them on extraordinarily generous terms. Day after day, growing weaker, the dying president wrote, determined to leave his family a fortune earned by his own hand instead of the ruin left by Ward's. He finished the manuscript in July of 1885. 3 days later, on the 23rd, Ulysses S. Grant died. His personal memoirs became one of the greatest bestsellers of the century and earned his widow Julia hundreds of thousands of dollars, securing the family Ward had tried to destroy. Grant won his final battle from beyond the grave, but the war had been forced on him by a swindler. And what of the young Napoleon? When the firm fell, Ward fled, but there was no escaping a scandal this enormous. He was arrested, hauled before a New York court, and put on trial for the fortune he had stolen. His old partner James D. Fish, the banker, was convicted too. The most admired financier in America stood exposed as one of its greatest thieves. The verdict was grand larceny. Ward was sentenced to 10 years of hard labor and sent up the Hudson River to the most feared prison in New York, Sing Sing. The man who had dined with presidents and lived in a country estate now wore prison gray. The estate, the brownstone, the legend of the young Napoleon of finance, all of it gone, the way every fortune he ever showed the world had always been an illusion. Even prison could not quite cure him. Ward served about 6.5 years and walked free in 1892, but the schemer in him never died. By some accounts, he later tried to seize the trust fund of his own son. He married again, drifted out of the headlines, and slowly vanished from the public eye that had once hung on his every move. Ferdinand Ward died in 1925, an old man almost no one remembered. The newspapers that had once crowned him the young Napoleon of finance barely noted his passing. The brilliant returns, the secret contracts, the estate, the fortune, none of it had ever been real. The only thing he ever truly produced was belief, and he sold it until there was nothing left to sell. Ferdinand Ward never invented a thing, never won a battle, never built anything that lasted. He simply understood that the most valuable asset in America was a trusted name, and he found the most trusted name of all and spent it down to nothing. He bankrupted a president, ruined a bank, and helped panic Wall Street, all on the promise of contracts that never existed. And in the end, the hero he destroyed had the last word, written by hand, while dying to undo the damage Ward had done. Case closed.